My background's in occupational psychology, and I used to work in academia and then market research companies, getting involved with staff surveys, employee engagement surveys, and all that kind of stuff. And then I moved in-house to Unilever as head of employee research there, where we did more staff surveys. And after this, I kind of just, saw the light and thought, these are just absolutely rubbish. There must be better ways of doing employee research than getting people to just tick 100 boxes and doing loads of analysis. So I set up the company 5 years ago, specifically to explore social and digital technologies and text analysis and new ways of people interacting online. And actually, when we started out in the first couple of years, I didn't really know this term collective intelligence or crowdsourcing. We were much more talking about social media and employee voice and those kind of things. And it's really only in the past kind of 3 years that we've got more into this space. And so I'm here to tell you a little bit about collective intelligence, a little bit of an overview of how it works in organisations and what organisations are doing, but also to talk about the work that we were doing with Unilever on building a new collective intelligence research tool, Crowdsourcing, and I'll give you a little bit of an introduction to that as well, and how we're using that within Unilever. Okay, so what I'm going to talk about, a little bit of an overview of collective intelligence and Crowdsourcing. I'm going to talk a little bit about the analysis and reporting as well, because it's a little bit different to traditional kind of survey analysis. So collective intelligence, I mean, you hear this banded around lots of different terms: collaborative intelligence, storm intelligence, crowd intelligence. I don't know which one will, maybe they'll all exist, but I don't know which one will kind of settle. This is Handbook of Collective Intelligence from MIT Centre for Collective Intelligence that was published a few months ago. This is a report that we just wrote on collective intelligence in organisations, which is available on the website. I'm just going to give you a very quick overview in 5 minutes and some of the content within that. It's funny, collective intelligence, because it's hard when doing kind of research about this and looking for a definition. Like, it's very hard, and academics love to get into kind of debates about how they define things. Psychologists can't even agree on a definition of intelligence. So when you add collective into that as well, you can see how it becomes very complicated. But I'll give you my kind of generic definition in a minute. And it's this: it's just simply people acting together to combine their knowledge and insight. But the main thing to grasp with this is it's an emergent property. It doesn't reside within any one person's brains. And I explain it to HR people like this. So, here's your brain. And in a way, our intelligence can also be thought of as being collective as well, because it's just individual neurons firing together, which gives us this emergent property. It's like consciousness. It's the same as our intelligence as well. The main thing here is to notice when you get lots of brains interacting together. And this is really the point that I try and make to organisations about their employee surveys, is that this is just people giving feedback in isolation. There's no interaction between people. And if there's no interaction, there can be no social collective intelligence, and therefore you're really limited as to the kind of insight that you can get out from people just randomly ticking boxes. And then when you scale that up, you get to this more kind of networked kind of type of intelligence, and that's really what this is all about. It's a networked intelligence which doesn't exist within any one particular individual. So social collective intelligence, that's what we're interested in, networks of people and computers interacting together. And I also like to kind of distinguish between crowdsourcing. I probably don't need to do that here, I don't imagine, but to distinguish between crowdsourcing and collective intelligence, because I just find people use these two terms interchangeably, which is nothing wrong with that. But crowdsourcing is much more about the process, the aim of which is to distribute work from one person to many people, whereas collective intelligence is much more about the output. So the focus is on the end goal. Crowdsourcing doesn't always lead to collective intelligence. And I'm not going to go through these in any great detail, but just to give you an idea of how organisations are using collective intelligence. And there's different categorisations that you can look at. I mean, it's very difficult, and some of these categories are really broad. But just to go through these very quickly, we're in the sphere of feedback and innovation about discussion and communities. You're seeing a lot of organisations now setting up insight communities as they start to kind of realise that the staff surveys they've been doing for the past 15, 20 years are grating on people's nerves. Knowledge sharing and workload distribution, so parallel task processing, breaking tasks down into discrete chunks and getting a lot of people to do those, like categorizing photos of the universe and galaxies and such like. And distributed Q&A, so I mean, these are the things that annoy me when you're trying to find like a support contact or a live contract. It's making you, websites making you go through its forums of Q&A to try and find the answers so they don't actually have to talk to you. Predicting the future, another thing, a lot of financial institutions interested in honing the accuracy of forecasts and predictions of particular markets. And coordination and collaboration, I mean, this is so broad, but it's anything to do with, organisation, mobilization. So lots of unions are obviously very interested in collective intelligence and these channels from which people can organize themselves, which before social technologies, they just couldn't do. And I mean, this covers everything from internal social networks, Facebook at Work, Yammer, Chatter, and all those other ones, to collaboration tools like Slack and Google Apps for Work and such like. It's all collective intelligence, and you can see how it's a pretty broad area, really. Depends how you look at it. And we talk a lot in the report about challenges for collective intelligence, and I'm not going to talk about all of these in a huge amount of detail. But there are administrative challenges, as you all know. I mean, there's some questions that were asked in the last session about how do you get people to participate in this? How do you get people to participate with any kind of consideration? Quite a lot of the time there's lack of detail. How do you deal with anonymity, conflict and abuse, and those sorts of things? With organizations, I mean, the thing about social technologies is that they're very open. It's very open, it's very transparent, it's very authentic. And whilst that's good for us as employees, it's difficult for leaders because it's very open. They're held to account and held to scrutiny. So there can be a lot of kind of feelings of loss of control, overcoming resistance. There's stuff about if organizations, I mean, it's not really relevant for us right here now, but crowd workers, the ethics of employing lots of people who don't have contracts that are an extension of your organization. Joanne talked a bit about socio-cognitive factors, and there's a bit of an overlap here as well. And I was going to say that these cognitive biases, lots of them have funny names. But in group decision making, how organizations can become, participants in discussions can become much more polarized, much more fragmented. But it's really this stuff about design that I wanted to focus on the most. Challenges in design of how you actually get people interacting online. The main one I'm going to talk about is this one at the end, list-based discussions, which is how this all really kind of started off a long time ago when I was at Unilever, as to thinking, okay, well, we've got hundreds, we've got thousands of people wanting to express opinions, but it's very, very difficult if you use lists of discussions because they don't scale well. Once you get over 20 or 30 people, they become very difficult to navigate. It's just information overload. Not all people's input has an equal chance of being read, so there's lots of problems with lists. And I thought, well, wouldn't it be interesting to kind of go back to see, because I didn't know, how did this all kind of start out? What are the beginnings of online discussions, and how has it changed? And if it hasn't changed, why hasn't it changed? And what can we actually do about it to move things forward? Because this is just, I think it's just a problem in the world right now that, you have more and more people wanting to collaborate, wanting to offer opinions and discussions, but any kind of discussion forums or comment sections that use lists of comments makes it very difficult to scale these discussions up. And this is hilarious. This is kind of like UC Berkeley Community Memory, apparently the first type of discussion forum. Like, I honestly don't know what the hell is going on here, that you have to put your hands in this thing, and it doesn't even have a screen, it's just a printer. I think this must have been, I think it was 1973. I don't know what the age of this one is, but I think it's kind of evolved a little bit by then. And then we move on to this. Is Neon, I mean, was I alive when this stuff was happening? Yeah, I guess I was. Okay, Neon BBS. You can see all these old graphics. It was one of the first discussion forums. Things are evolving. It's getting more into, the 1990s now with this kind of thing. And here we are today. I mean, this is from my phone. Lots of things have changed with discussions. Obviously, it's on my mobile. It's got videos there. But we still have this problem of lists of comments. And you see it like this, when you say, okay, well, there's 53,000 comments here. What's the point in putting that in a list? What are you going to do with it? Who's going to read all those comments? So what we started out looking at was how are there other methods that you can use other than lists of comments? And it turns out that one good way to do that is to use data visualizations as a means of interaction as opposed to lists of comments. And so what we came up with was Crowdscope, and we described this as an interactive survey and discussion tool for real-time collective intelligence. And it's interesting because in research terms, it's one of these hybrid tools, so it's not really a quant tool, although you can get quant out of it. It's not really a qual tool, although you can get qualitative data out of it. These are kind of new hybrid technologies. Unilever very, very kindly funded the project, so we do owe a lot to them. But this is why I've talked about some of these points already, but I'm not going to go through all of these, but I wanted to be very clear about why we were building this tool and what problems it would solve. And I think the three main ones are the fact that traditional surveys are outdated and boring for participants. And as someone who kind of worked in employee research and employee engagement, whenever I'd meet someone and they ask what I do, and I kind of say that, yes, that's what I would focus at, that I was always a bit embarrassed. Really, two minutes? I've been talking for 18 minutes. Is that right? Have I been talking for 18 minutes? Okay. Online qual tools that use listed discussions, as I already mentioned, can't scale, and the fact that traditional surveys can't provide social collective intelligence. So there's 3 steps to this. Step 1, respond. So we show a simple survey in its most simple form. This is one tick box and one open-ended question. Step 2, we share comments out so people can evaluate these comments. And we also display the results. So this is like an auto poll, kind of auto response. People can see the results of the question they've just filled in. And step 3 is much more like a normal discussion forum. They get a control panel, and which is going to help them to navigate this conversation. So this is how it works. Everyone receives a link. The first thing that we're going to do in step 1 is complete this survey. How happy did you feel yesterday? What do you think is the most important factor in leading a happy life? Please explain. Okay, that's step 1. So that's just a simple survey. And you can ask multiple tick box questions. So in step 2 now, we're going to reveal the results of that question. And the system's pulling out a number of comments, in this case 4, and this is displaying other people's responses to that question. But the most important thing down here is these evaluation criteria. So we're getting everyone to evaluate this comment on 2 different evaluation criteria. We're trying to be a bit more sophisticated than just kind of upvotes or likes. We're asking this across 2 dimensions on a visual analog scale. And there's an infinite number of evaluation criteria you can ask. How much of a priority should this be for a happy life? At this time, to what extent is this factor present in your life? Okay, and that's the interaction bit that I was talking about. And now in step 3, I'm just going to go through this really quickly. When you rate a comment, you're going to be able to see the discussion thread underneath that, so you can get involved in a 2-way discussion, multi-directional discussion with other colleagues or with the organisation, can go back to people. And these are highlighted so people can go back in. Because the idea with this is not you go in, tick, 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 in 5 minutes and you're done. You know, you're meant to go back in to see if you've had any replies. We obviously haven't because we've just written it. To see what the top comments are, so we automatically display the top 10 comments from the whole system, and that way it's very open. I don't like word clouds as a means of analysis, but helping someone navigate a conversation, this works quite well. You know, it gives people a bit of an update onto what is going on in the discussion. You can click on them. This is where you were talking about, so you can get feedback on your own comment as well. So this is a hook for people to go back in. And just some recent examples of Unilever that we've done. Well-being research, they're positioning people by what they think is the most important aspects of their well-being and how the company could increase their well-being at work. This is one with Unilever's reward function to crowdsource priorities for the year ahead. This is one for the chief HR officer. Unilever have a new chief HR officer. They want to crowdsource which direction to take the HR function in, what's important. And the thing is here as well, you can position people on an attitudinal groups, you know, do you agree, disagree, or you can group them on some other kind of poll question or a demographic or something like that, something that's going to give meaning to the people. And this final one that I'll show you here about sustainability, so crowdsourcing views on communicating sustainability within Unilever. I was going to tell you more, but that's the quickest 20 minutes I've ever had. So I'll leave it there. Thank you very much.